A very interesting session. We're going to cover quite a bit when it comes to technical proficiency. And as you experience, when I was learning something new, Mentimeter, we're always learning something new. And the key to learning new things is to practice. And so I'll be demoing quite a few tricks and just showing you different tools and different applications that will be able to help us as we are going to do this. But keep in mind that you'll be able to practice this on your own and practice. I think when it comes to learning tools or using Excel or using all these things, don't feel like you have to get it right away. But there's always resources out there to help you get better. So I'm going to go ahead and start presenting. Nope, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to start the slideshow and then we'll get started. All right. So welcome to Technical Proficiency. So we're going to be doing the intro and the deep dive all together. And I would love to hear you and put this in the chat. And you can answer it by putting 1, 2, 3, or 4. How confident are you at navigating your computer? You could be still developing competence, confident in some, confident in most, or extremely confident in all things. How confident are you? 3, confident in most. Confident in most, really good. I should tell you, we'll be using Slack a lot for a lot of our check-ins today, not as much Menti. So be sure to get in there, and the TA will be helping by putting the questions in there for you as well. Awesome. 2, 4, extremely confident, confident in some. Really good. Been trying to develop since 1979. They keep changing stuff. Yes, constantly evolving. Wonderful. Very good. Awesome. More or less 4. Confident, extremely confident. Wonderful. So for the most of you, hopefully this is all repeat and just reinforcing your knowledge. And some of these things will be new. I think we all may have experienced a love-hate relationship with technology when it doesn't work the way we need it to. So really, really great. So a question for you is, I would love to hear if we can predict on average how much time in hours do we save or can we save when using the right tools? So this is really the heart of technical proficiency, using tools to be able to make our lives a little bit easier. In general, across all workspaces, they suggest that using the right tools can save us between 15 to 5 to 15 hours a week. So about 10 hours in general. That is a lot of time saved on using the right tools. So you might ask, where does this range come from? So now everyone's heard of AI. I'm sure you have, if it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Perplexity or you name it. But right now, automation and AI tools are currently saving an average of 5 to 10 hours a week, really saving us on repetitive tasks. Also, collaboration and communication tools. So things like better organization or faster coordination, meetings, 3 to 5 hours a week. It pretty much saves us. So instead of going back and forth with email or phone calls, getting everyone in a room to talk about an issue will save you time because you're not waiting for someone to respond. You're right there. And then the other tools are data and project management tools. And here they say they save between 2 and 5 hours a week on average, better organization, and fewer hours. So for an average 40-hour work week, we're saving between 12 and 37%, which basically we're gaining an extra half day of work by automating or improving the way that we do things. So wonderful. So hopefully this encourages us to really dive deep in here to see, okay, how can I leverage these tools to help me work better? Now, our objectives for today are to understand technical proficiency and its 4 components. Increase our computer literacy. Well, I'll talk about file management, how to optimize your web searching, troubleshooting, some of the things that we need to know just in case we get into some trouble. The use of spreadsheets to create them, analyzing them, data, and meaningful data tables. I think what the most important skill that you'll really learn to use spreadsheets for is, what is this data telling me? We talked about that in problem solving. How do you organize the data in a way that it actually speaks to you? It actually gives you guidance into what we need to do. How to discover and communicate those trends and insights of data visualizations, and then learning to apply some of the best practices when working with spreadsheets and data. This is kind of my favorite part in spreadsheets. You'll see I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to spreadsheets. So as we have our learning goals, you should have your I can statements as well to track our learning. We'll check your progress, and at the end of the lesson, we'll also reflect on that with you. And these should highlight what we know, what you should be knowing by the end of our time together. So hopefully by the end of our time together, you can organize files using nested folders and consistent naming conventions to efficiently locate and manage digital resources. So we'll talk about that. There is a methodology that you can create and manage bookmarks in web browsers, organizing them in folders by categories to quickly assess important sites. You'll be able to perform advanced searches for files, such as quotes, file types. We'll talk about that. Also, maintaining browser performance, clearing cookies, cache, your history. What does that look like? How does that impact? Also, creating and structuring tables and spreadsheets using best practices, such as consistent formatting, appropriate data validation, and clear headers. So if all these words are new, I'll explain them and you'll know what data validation will be by the end. You can apply basic analytical functions in spreadsheets, summing, average, counting. It's not a full-on Excel course, but just an introduction to what these tools can do for you. Also, conditional formatting and data validation tools to highlight information in those sheets. So if you're full of information, how do you make it visually quick to reference so that you can see what's happening? And then once you can interpret and then communicate that data, how do you extract meaningful insights, identify trends, and make data-informed decisions? And then by the end, you can communicate data insights effectively by creating clear and concise summaries that highlight key findings for different audiences. So what does that look like? And then putting your effective communication skills into practice. All right, so let's dive deep. What is technical proficiency? It really is having the right tools and knowing what to do with them, because tools are meant to help us in achieving our goals more effectively. It's a proficiency of being skilled in utilizing a range of computer applications to enhance workplace productivity. Some of the tools we use in this course are, you're using Slack, you're using the online learning portal that you have, we're using Zoom, using Mentimeter. These are all things that are facilitating your learning. And so this is what that means. So today, when we're talking about what are the components and what does it consist of? So there's two basic skills. One is a computer literacy skill. So it's really, how are you computer literate with what's happening? And then data literacy. And so within data literacy, there are four focus areas. One would be data tools, and then data analysis, data interpretation, and then data communication. So that is a kind of process. Once you have the tools, how do you analyze that data? How then do you interpret it? And then how then do you communicate it? Someone loves an Excel spreadsheet, so I'll be really excited to get there when we get there. All right, computer literacy. Sorry, I'm a little dry today, so I'll be coughing quite a bit, so I'm sorry. But computer literacy will be demonstrating proficiency in using computers and technology for everyday tasks. That's what that looks like. How do we know we're successful? Is that we want to increase our confidence level with using computer applications, and then able to effectively troubleshoot and resolve computer problems without any external help. And so we'll walk through those things. And then what does it look like to have really good file management? What does it look like to browse the internet safely and efficiently? And then how do we troubleshoot some common technical issues? So last week, I think when we met right before, my Bluetooth wasn't working. So how did I have to diagnose that I didn't have a computer I don't have a help desk. And so going online, looking up some errors, trying to figure out what does it look like, and then restoring some of these functions in it. So some of the examples of computer literacy, like we said, was we were talking about file management, browser navigation, and then basic troubleshooting are kind of the three areas that we're going to focus on. And so saving a Word document, for example, or a Google Sheet, depending on which application you're using. How do you copy, organize them in separate folders for easy access? And then how do you rename them? So that switch off or switch on. Standardized naming conventions. I'm also reading some of the chats, but yeah, switching off and back on every time is always one of the first steps to try to diagnose some of the things that we're doing. But then also when you're online, browser navigation, bookmarking an important research article for future reference, managing multiple tabs efficiently while working online, and then using advanced search operators so that you can get sources quickly. Understanding that with ChatGPT, you can do a lot of searches there. My only recommendation with AI is when sources come back or information comes back, ask to source it. Where is this information coming from? So that you can be able to find out that if it's accurate or not as well. And then also basic troubleshooting. Sometimes if your connectivity doesn't work, restarting your Wi-Fi, checking your cable connections. And then also we'll look at cache and cookies if you're having issues online with websites. So we'll start with file management and why it's important. We'll review how to organize files, naming them, saving them, and file searching. File management really is once you open up your Explorer, and then just kind of seeing how you want to organize it for ease of finding it. And some of the ways that you can do that with file management is in terms of organizing. There's a nested folder structure. And what that means, it's kind of a nest. It's one under another. So it's a parent folder, and then underneath it, different activities. So if you had one project, then you can do it by phase. And then within those phases, you can have documents. So for example, how I file manage for this course, I have the name of the course, PRC03, and then I'll have each of the weeks within it. And then I'll have the documents within there so I can easily find, here's my course, here's my different weeks, and here are my documentation. And then I kind of go in there. You can also do some quick ahead of the time work, which is folder templates that you could automatically have every time if you have a certain project or certain project, I guess, or work that you have that's consistent, that either has meeting notes or project timeline or kind of whatever that looks like, employee data. You can have those already preset. So every time you start something new, you just copy the whole thing, they're empty, and then you'll already have that. So those are some tips and tricks that you can use to do that. And when we talk about naming, using descriptive names that include keywords so that you can easily find the files later is really important. And also including dates so that you know when this would be. And avoiding those special characters. Underscores are really good, but special characters are not really compatible going across. And really, if you could see an example, so 2025-0101 doc report, it makes it easy to find by date and type. So this is a file for your reference when we talk about the difference of saving as or saving a file or renaming it. So really understand when to use what and why, especially when you're changing formats, or if you have been given a file and you're making an update, to look between which one would be really good. So this is something that you can refer to later as you're thinking about how you want to name your files. So, excuse me, hopefully I will be done with this in a few minutes and I won't cough so much. Some of the tips for file management best practices, as we covered, tips would be desktop shortcuts. So as you get I should demo this, but I didn't have it ready. But some of the tips is desktop shortcuts by putting the files in a place that you can quickly get it. Some are pinning frequently used. Actually, I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, let's see. I'm going to show it to you because I think that would be a little bit better. To explain, All right. So I'm going to just reshare my whole desktop and then, excuse me. And then you can see, where's my desktop? All right, now you should see. So for example, on your desktop, you probably should see it. You can either put it here for quick ease of access. It's just right here, click, click. You don't really have to go into a file or not. Recent files, there's certain ways that I organize and I keep things pinned kind of at the top, just right here. As you can see, there's a bunch of pins here. So it just makes it really easy to find and quick of access. So really, it's really developing a way of working. This is gonna be for later, that will be able to help you do things quicker and a little bit more efficiently. Saving default locations, and then context menus, which would be due. Some really good habits would be to scheduling weekly 10-minute maintenance sessions. And what that means is really going through your files and getting rid of redundant things. Sometimes we have 10 versions of the same thing, or even 20 in certain things. And so what does it look like to kind of get rid of if you don't need it? There is some things that you can have if you're using Google Sheets with different revisions. So you really have to think about, how can I use these best? And then temporary file management. How can you differentiate between working files and then, getting rid of that, and really applying a consistent structure so that you can know, this is where I have this and this is where I do that. All right. So this is a question that you all can answer in the chat. Which of the following is the most effective way to save a file containing quarterly sales data? So given some of the things I brought out earlier, which one is the most effective? Can you go ahead and answer it in chat? A, B, C, or D? C, C, C. Very good. I think it's a resounding C for everybody. Absolutely. It's very clear. It tells you, what is it? Quarterly sales. It's using the underscore, not the special characters that you see in B, and it's telling you the date and the quarter. So by this name of it, you know exactly what it is and what it's referring to. So awesome if you guys have all said C. Very good. All right. So browser navigation. So we're going to review how you're going to optimize browser bookmarks, tab management, online searches, and online safety. Now, if you're like me, you might get bogged down with a lot of things you're saving online. So we'll definitely talk about that. But in the chat, I'd love for you to answer, how would you describe your overall confidence in digital skills, browser, bookmarks, tab management, online searches, and online safety? I see 3, confident, mostly confident, 3 and 4, 2, confident some, awesome. 2 and 3, really good. Yeah. There are so many different ways to do it. If it's either the way that we're doing bookmarks or the way that we're managing our tabs, but there's definitely some things we need to keep in mind. So the purpose of having browser bookmarks are to reduce the time that if we're going to things pretty regularly, we want to be able to keep them in a really good place. Easy to find, easy to access. So how to bookmark, you can do, so there's 2 different options. You can use your mouse or you can use Control D. So you'll see control functions as well as a troubleshooting tip, because sometimes if your mouse isn't working, how do you get into certain applications and certain things? So these control functions, commands, those are all things that will help you do things if your mouse doesn't work. So you can get through tabs and work. Troubleshooting, figuring out, why doesn't my mouse work? So depending on if you have a Mac or a Windows Chrome, some of the things on how to bookmark. Most address lines in, from my experience, has a little star at the end, which makes it easy to bookmark. So there are also some shortcuts within the browsers to do that without having to do the the Control D for that. So managing tabs, a strategy. So how do we organize and navigate multiple open browser tabs? Improving productivity, reducing clutter, or enhancing. Some of the things for shortcuts is Control T, which is opening up a new tab. Control tab cycling through tabs. So again, if you don't have access to your mouse, what does it look like? Control Shift T, reopening closed tabs. If you close one accidentally, how do you do that? But it's also are all functionalities that you can get to through your mouse and also through your keyboard shortcuts as well. And if you're wanting to look at your tab search, Control Shift A to search some of your open tabs, and then also collapsing groups. So some ways to organize is you can have multiple windows open if you're working on a certain thing and have certain online files open, or just have it all in one, depending on how much clutter you want to see or how you want to organize yourself there for tab management. Online searches, as you can see, we just often just put it in the toolbar, either it's Google or Bing, or even just in the address bar. It's changing as technology is constantly evolving. And so when I used to put address in an address bar, it's also a search function as opposed to a Google search. So watch out for those as well. But using exact phrases really does help us get the best search possible. And you can use quotes so that it doesn't just look for one or the other, but both. How specific do you want to get our search? Excluding words as well, saying we want this, but minus this, depending on what you're trying to find. Site-specific searches and even file type searches. So for example, when I'm looking for book summaries or anything that would help me with something that I'm teaching, I'll look for this type of file with a PDF. So I can look for PDFs, people that have written a summary or a story. Wildcard searches, you use the asterisk or the question mark. And then you can also find related sites, or there's something similar to here. And then also you can use it as a dictionary. And then before and after dates to be able to refine some of our searches. So learning online search syntax to be able to be more efficient with our searches is really key to, one, save time, be a little bit more efficient in our searching, but also get us the information that we are looking for. All right, so browse bookmarks, online searches. So basic troubleshooting is part of, let's see, is there a difference between the star and the and does it matter per browser? That is a great question. The star kind of gives it a wild card. And you can, I've never really used the question mark, to be honest with you. I use the asterisk, but I believe either one can work. It's also, the asterisk works when you're searching for a file on your computer. For example, if you want any file that's a PDF, you'll put asterisk.pdf and it'll bring up all the PDFs on your computer Explorer, kind of all your files. I've mostly used asterisk. It's the one that I've always used. You're welcome. All right, basic troubleshooting. I'm going to review some of the best practices for troubleshooting, looking at our browsers and cookies with cache, and then our cache file is called, and then what is it? How does it impact productivity? All right, so this says I'm going to demo. So what we'll talk about is a task manager. I have a Windows. So if you have a Mac, you can practice this and see where this is. I'm going to show you the task manager. I'll show you how to open it and what to end or force quits. What does this mean to use a task manager and why? Sometimes we'll be working and our computer, you'll just notice that the computer gets hung up, the file isn't, or the program you're using isn't responding. I think another thing is that there's so many, as we've used our computers, there's so many clicks and things that are working in the background that we're not often aware. Our computers often maybe running 10 programs behind the scenes, and you're noticing my computer is really slow, it's really bogged down. And it happened to me actually this week where my computer took forever to load because it's running 10 minutes worth of files. And I was like, what is happening? So the speed for me to get to is Control Alt Delete. That is the way I get my task manager. So I go in, And I think you can see, I go Control Alt Delete. Please let me know if you see my task manager. But what this shows me is that here are all the apps running. And then here are all the background processes happening. So I have Audible, even though I haven't had that open in a while. Canva's running in the background. And what you can see, so by the CPU usage, it's telling you how much memory, how much CPU time it's taking, what are some of the files that I can kind of quit, if that makes sense, to be able to help have some efficiency. If you could see, I went into performance last week to check, was it performances? No, it was startup apps. So here's where I had to enable a bunch of the start or disable a lot of the startup apps that were really trying to were taking a long time for my computer to come up. But this is how that would work. You would right click on it and you would end task. I'm not going to end any task because I have a few things open for our time today. So, but you would just end the task and then close out and then try it again. But this is a task manager, and this is one of your tools in your toolbox to be able to know, how do I troubleshoot? How do I figure things out? So it's ending and quitting tasks. It's the activity monitor is where you would see your CPU and your memory. How's your computer functioning? You know, all of those things. All right, let's get back into the slideshow. All right, another one is our browser and cache cookies. So what is cache? What are cookies? As you get, when you go online, they'll ask you, do you want to accept cookies? Do you want to delete cookies? Cache kind of keeps these temporary storage of websites. And so one of the things I'd like to tell you is this is also where your passwords, so you know how we have automatic, you save your password in your browser. If you delete caches and cookies, you're kind of starting all over and logging in. So be aware of that as well as you use it. And in I'm going to go here. Am I going to go here? No, I'm going to go here. As we go into, which browser do I want to be in? If I want to go in here, how you would find it. So I'm using Firefox for this demonstration. In the PowerPoint, you'll see different ways to see it. But what you will do is you will go into settings, which is mostly everywhere. Then you'll go to privacy and settings. And then you will see here's cookie and site data. This is where everything is saved. You either want to clear it, manage it, or also manage exceptions. Back when pop-ups were really prominent, you know, you went to a site and you just got with all these pop-up screens. It's a lot less now. You'd put on specific sites to not allow pop-up screens, things like that. It's mostly spam related. So really being safe about those things, watching where you are, and then putting the blocks when you need it. And this should about, yeah. And then there's more things if you'd like to do, putting permissions, how do you want to save things, and also even password things as well. So always getting to know your settings, what can you do, what can you enable is a really good thing to know when you're online and dealing with browsers. And also you can use incognito mode, and that just means you just don't want anyone to know anything. You can also use that function on with some of your browsers. All right. So then part of this also is productivity tools. Again, all the tools that we need to be able to do to make our lives easier. And so tasks and to-do lists. So if you are not like me and you like online things, you can use Microsoft to-do lists or Google Tasks or Todoist. I really am still a paper and pen checkbox kind of lister. But these are also automated ways that you can do that. And then task management and focus. How can you really organize yourself better? Toggle track. I use that all the time. Just to, what am I working on? How much time is it taking me to do this? So I really do. I use toggle track quite a bit. There's Forest, Cold Turkey. Cold Turkey blocks distracting websites or apps during working hours. So for example, when I'm on a call with you, everything I have is on do not disturb. So I don't get any pings, don't get any interruptions, so that I'm here focusing here with you. Some extensions that you can do, browser extensions, if you don't know what they are added things you can add into your internet browser to kind of help. So you can have Grammarly, If you're all from the UK, I'm American, and I was an extreme couponer. So I used to have this coupon browser to be able to let me know of like these sales. And so you can enable things to kind of come to you. But pocket saving articles, web pages for later reading. One tab reduces tab clutter. If any of you are on Pinterest, that's kind of a visual way of doing tabs and bookmarking, which I found really easier, like for recipe, things like that, recipes, things that would visually help me be organized. Those are different ways that you can have that. All right, so we have come to the end of our computer literacy part. And so key takeaways would be for file organization, making sure you're using a structured folder system and consistent naming conventions for easy access. Don't be afraid to go back and revisit some of the things you do have in a way that would make sense and to do that and look. So creating nested folder structures using search operators and then descriptive names with date. How can I find things faster? As you're looking at your web efficiency, how do you utilize bookmarks, search operators, and tab management for also better productivity? Bookmark frequently visited sites, organizing them in folders. So I have like 10 emails, and so I have one folder just called emails, and I have all my emails that I can just get to really quickly instead of having to type the different browsers. Online safety is strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and cautious browsing habits. That I can't stress more. Using multi-factor authentication it's a little annoying, but it's really helpful. It'll check your password on your phone or send an email code. Is how we're seeing it. You'll see an email sent to your email with a code to be able to log in. And so they're really cracking down on getting hacked and really wanting to do some safety. So you'll see that more and more as we kind of go on. Troubleshooting basics, really restarting devices. I think someone put in there saying just turn on and turn off, checking connections, clearing browser. A lot of things we can handle on our own first before getting help. So restarting devices, making sure that you label and organize your cables so you can just check if it's connectivity. And a practical workplace tip, it's one that I use all the time, is using a built-in password manager to securely store and autofill passwords. So don't rely on your browsers to keep source of your passwords, but things like KeePass is something that I use, and it has all my passwords of everything that I have in different categories, whether it's work related, personal related, kid related, because I have so many of them. And so all the things that I need and all the passwords that you can generate in one place. So you have one master password is how that works. And then all of your data, links, the websites, everything. So I would recommend looking into a password manager to store all of your passwords and making sure it's backed up to a cloud. All right, knowledge check. So we have 3. So we're going to put one question at a time, and we'll hopefully get this done quickly. But the first one is, what is the best way to organize files for easy access? A, save all the files on the desktop for quick retrieval. Use a structured hierarchy with clear naming conventions. Keeping all the files in one folder, or renaming it randomly. Awesome. B, A, B, number 2, B. Awesome. Ding, ding. B is the right answer. Using structured folder hierarchy with clear naming conventions, right? We don't want to file things randomly. We don't want to keep it all in one folder because that's a lot. All right, next question. Which of the following is not recommended online safety practice? So using strong, unique passwords, enabling two-factor authentication, checking for HTTPS in the URL before entering sensitive information, and then clicking on email links without verifying the sender. So what is not? Absolutely D. What you'll notice sometimes it's number C, it says HTTPS. Some websites just have HTTP. So it's an added security. You might notice that with the different websites if you're on when you're online. All right, question 3 is which of the following would not match for the search query best for beginners? So best asterisk for beginners. D. Absolutely. Wonderful. And why is that? Because we put it in the quotes. So we were asking for very specific search, right? So we could have best and we can have beginners, anything in the middle, but best beginner tips for cooking. Cooking was nowhere in our search. So wonderful job, everybody. And this is the wild card. So very, 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 very good. All right. How are we doing? Very cool. All right. DDD, love it. So we went through the first part, which is the computer literacy part, and now we're going to dive into the data literacy. So remember, there's going to be 4 components under the data literacy part that we'll talk about: the tools, the analysis, the interpretation, and communication. So in data literacy, our hope, our goal is to be able to read, interpret, create, and communicate the data effectively to make informed decisions, right? We're going to use tools that will help us in the analysis. You'll see we'll be doing Google Sheets, Excel, how to interpret it, how to use the information, and then also how to communicate the insights. How do we know we're successful? We're going to increase our confidence in working with the data. We're going to be willing and ability to contribute to team discussions around the data, also able to troubleshoot and solve challenges using the data, and then also looking for trends and patterns. This is the analytical thinking skills that we're going to be putting into practice when it comes to data. Okay, sorry about the noise in the background. What is data literacy? Data literacy is becoming the new literacy. It's the ability to read, understand, and create and communicate this data as information. So it involves knowing how to interpret it, knowing how to recognize patterns. In real life, it's being able to navigate and make sense of a map to reach our destination, right? Instead of using geographical locations, we're using numbers, charts, information. We're using data to be able to guide where we're going. Data literacy empowers individuals to secure better jobs, making more informed health and financial decisions. Not many people can read or interpret a bar chart or a line chart, which I'll go into later in our talk together, or a frequency table. So being able to do so will make you much more attuned to the world around you. People with data literacy skills can find better jobs, they make better decisions, and they can plan their financial lives and be more informed decisions or citizens. So we're really using the information to make transformative choices in our lives. Many companies are hiring highly skilled data analysts and data scientists to help them make sense of the data. So we're gathering data all around. How do we make sense of it? And how do we communicate that well? All right, Marian, I'm glad you're upright and breathing. So this is awesome. All right, some examples of data literacy would be basic data analysis, using our tools, troubleshooting and problem solving, communicating, asking the right questions. What does it look like to understand the data and the different types and formats? We get different types of data. We've got numerical data, we've got categorical data, and how do we communicate? Those things are usually with Excel spreadsheets, databases, JSON files. The other ways that we do by reading and interpreting that data is showing our ability to accurately read and understand charts, graphs, trends, pie charts, line graphs. So these are all things we'll show a little bit later, but JSON, it's a language. Did I write it down? No, I didn't write it down. You caught me not doing the, yeah, it's a file format. Sorry. Thank you for that check. Also, basic statistical knowledge. So some of the basic tools, understanding Excuse me, mean, median, mode, kind of going back to basic statistics, standard deviation. So if we're looking at something, standard deviation, it's we're kind of deviating from something that we're planning. So just to give you an idea, correlation, how are things correlating together, what's going on, what's essential for interpreting this data correctly. We also, when we talk, we also, this is a lot of different examples of data literacy, but being able to clean the data. So data clean and preparation, knowing how to identify and correct the errors in the data. So if we have it, not just looking at it and receiving it just as is, but what kind of checks and balances do we need to employ to do that? Are there any missing values? Have we accounted for everything? Is everything being presented? Are we accounting for too much? Are we outside of the timeline in which that we're looking at? So really being good at knowing what you need, and then also being able to do basic data analysis, such as calculating averages, summarizing the data, and identifying trends and patterns again. And then using data tools like we covered, Excel, Google Sheets, structured query language for SQL, if you know, for that as well. And then also troubleshooting and problem solving, which we covered last week in problem solving. So using skills to diagnose, fixing the issues related to the data accuracy, tool errors, and analysis processes. So the last 3 points would be for data literacy is understanding, this 7 and 8, where you were really going to understand data ethics and privacy. So we need to have an awareness of data privacy concerns, ethical considerations, best practices for handling sensitive information. So us being in Europe and the UK, GDPR is huge, right? I can't even remember what GDPR stands for, but it was huge. It's the responsibility of what we do with people's data. You sign it everywhere you go. They're giving more power to you as a user to know what you do with your data that you've given to someone. Communicating data insights, the ability to explain your data in a clear, concise, and actionable manner for non-experts. So you presenting this data is the resident expert. How do you make it understandable for people to know what you're trying to communicate so that the insights are understood and they're also utilized effectively? And then the last thing, if we're going to implement the 5 whys from last week, is asking the right questions, right? So knowing how to formulate relevant questions that can be answered through data and helping to drive meaningful analysis and decision making. So those are kind of the examples of what does it look like for data. Thank you, General Data Protection Regulations, or the pain of HR's existence. I like that one. All right, so we're going to, awesome, yes, GDPR was huge and continues to run our world. All right, so some of the data tools. So this is going to be fun. I'll be doing a lot of demo. I'll start with demoing a Word file, and then we'll be going into Excel and worksheets and things like that. So keep note, these are all things that you'll be able to have not access to, but you'll be using a file to then create them and learn and practice them yourself. So what we're going to cover very briefly would be documents. So summarizing overviews that highlight key insights and relevant data. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is the common applications. Why do we use documents versus spreadsheets? So in your work, you'll decide, do I need a Word file? Do I need a spreadsheet? Documents can be used to summarize overviews, key insights, relevant data, compiling your detailed reports, documenting processes, sources for transparency, and agendas and notes for team. You can do that both in Word. You can do that in Google Docs, the Word or the document one. Spreadsheets often are used to gather and organize raw data from various sources. And a lot of these are numbers, creating charts, graphs. It also could be non-number information, and you'll see what I mean by that. But identifying and analyzing trends over time and forecasting outcomes based on different scenarios. Also called the scenario analysis. If you change certain variables, then this kind of comes out, and those are for more advanced forecasting. And cleaning data to ensure accuracy and reliability. And what that means is that you have these formulas in the spreadsheet, and then you'll make sure that they're working. You'll get error messages if they were not. All right, so I'm going to show you. First, we're going to go into Word. And I'm using our 5 learning objectives so that you can see. And did I skip one? No. All right. So one of the tools that you can do in a document, if you're dealing with pages of document, let's say, for example, we wanted to find something in the document. I always use Control F. And I get, no, that's not the right one. Control, no, it's find and replace. So then I see Control F. Nope. Oh, yes, it is. If I use Control F, I did test this out before. Find and replace. Why are you not working? So now I'm going to troubleshoot. You worked before. Control F. Let me use an easy word. And okay, so it instead of coming up, this is why you troubleshoot. Instead of coming up as a dialog box in the middle, it's coming up on the side. So oftentimes they update your file, your programs, and then it's different. So in this case, I searched for the word and. So everywhere the AND shows up, it'll show. So at the end of understand, it's just Control F. You put it here. Here are the different. You can click to where you need to go if you're wanting to change it. Another option is if you needed, if there was a mistake or something you wanted to replace, you can do Control File and Replace once you find it, and then you can replace it with another word, which I believe doesn't work for that one because I'm not getting my normal thing. But once you find the document, find the word that you want to do, then you can go ahead and replace it with something else if you need to do that within Word. What you can do also is changing the font. So you'll go to home. I have it in the app. So let's say I feel like doing something a little bit more fun. Let me change it to a script. And then I don't like bold. I'm going to unbold everything. You can change what your font looks like. If you want to underline, a lot of these are here. There are some quick keystrokes to it. I like to use the toolbar if you want to have it, how do you say it in English? Italicized? Italics, that's the word. And then if you rather have bullet points, I have all these quick buttons, but they're all here on the top. You can use your toolbar to be able to get to things very quickly. This is where my find and replace is. So up here, I would have my find the word and let's say I wanted to replace it with the word first. So I replace all. And then it replaces everything for you. So under first and then everything, all the ands get changed. So my editing is in a quick find. So that will take that's going to be some of the things that you can do in Word. The other kind of formatting that you should know is that you can always left align your text. You can also center your text. You can also line it all the way to the right or the left, depending on how you see it. Or this is called like what do you call it? The justify. So it has all your rows kind of ending in the same place is really what that looks like. If I take away the dots, you can see that a little bit more clearly. And so that is our formatting within Word. All right. So I've got a question for you that to put in the chat. It's going to be a scenario. And I would like you to answer. Let's go back to our slideshow. You're a warehouse manager responsible for overseeing your team's performance to improve efficiency. You need to track and analyze performance metrics. What application or tool can you use or should you use for this task? Spreadsheet. Yay, spreadsheets, Excel, absolutely. Excel and spreadsheets are usually used anonymously, and we're going to dive into some spreadsheets, but absolutely right on spreadsheets. Why do we use spreadsheets? It's a digital tool that helps us organize, analyze, and store data in a tabular format. It consists of rows and columns that form cells where we can input text, numbers, and formulas. Now, you can access spreadsheets either in Google Sheets, or if you have Microsoft Excel, or you have Microsoft 365 online, and then you would create then a workbook. So some of the ways, and then how to save your work is Google Sheets and Excel Online usually saves it in real time, but in Excel, like if you have the desktop version, just making sure you save using our saving convention. So save as, rename. So what does that look like? And some of the benefits of using Google Sheets and having your documentation there is that it does have its own version control. So version 1, version 2, you can kind of tell what that is. But since we need to track and analyze performance metrics, we will create a spreadsheet for this task. We need to move you guys over here. So some of the anatomy of a word of spreadsheets is that Excel files are called workbooks, and within the workbooks are worksheets. Worksheets are the individual sheets within a workbook, and it's used to store and organize data. So a tip is that you can keep related data in the same workbook, but with separate tabs. So monthly reports, for example, could be the workbook. And then the monthly report, January, February, March, April, May, could be the different tabs. All right, so let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and go into Excel so that we can see some of these. No, I don't want that. I want... Yes? No? All right. I need to get to the beginning of my worksheet. Hold on one moment. Okay, I don't want that. I want... All right. So here is an example of a spreadsheet. So the workbook, and you can see the different tabs that are here on the bottom. And I'll do... All right, let's do that. All right. So again, that would be it. So how you want to organize your data, we'll be working with this, but you have columns. Columns are usually delineated by letters, and your rows, and they're delineated by numbers. And so when you think of D6, it's referring to this particular cell, or H6 or H2. What does that look like? And going from there. So we rows are represented always by numbers and columns by letter. So how do we read tables? In this particular case right here, we've got employee ID and employee name. So we've got the employee ID is at the top, and then their numbers are on the bottom, or employee names. To read the table, you generally need to read where's the title and then what's the information before. And it can be sideways or not sideways, but it could have the titles in the rows, and then the information's in the columns, or vice versa. As you see it here, the information is in the columns in the first row, and all the data is on the bottom after that. And that's how you would learn about whatever it is that you're looking at, and you're learning that information. Okay, let's go back in here. We just covered that, how to read tables, and then some of the data entry best practices. One is defining clear objectives. The purpose of your data, or the table, or the database. It's always starting, spend a lot more time being clear about what your workbook's going to be about, preparing your structure, what kind of key data points that you need for the analysis, and also using key or clear column headers. Formatting the data correctly. We'll talk about formatting also, if it's a date, if it's currency, if it's a number percentage, how do you format that? And then also avoid mixed formats. So using text and numbers in the same column. So if in one column you're talking about the date, it should just be the date. You wouldn't have anybody's name. It would just be date data. And then also implementing data validation rules like drop-down lists so that you can ease of quick of inputting data, but then also making sure that it's consistent. And this is one, avoiding merging cells. So merging cells sometimes looks nice and pretty if you're wanting to do things, but really avoid to do that. Utilize formatting to be able to do that. That's just a key number one when you're doing anything in Excel. And also when you're structuring your data with scalability in mind, what does that mean? So that remains efficient as it grows, is that create a model or create something that can actually grow with more information. You're not limited. You can actually grow with it. All right, so here is a knowledge check real quickly. Another one. Scenario, you are a warehouse manager responsible for overseeing your team's performance. To improve efficiency, you need to track and analyze performance metrics. Which table would best support tracking and analyzing performance? I don't know, I hope you guys can see. Here you go. All right, which table? So the answer would be A, B, or C. We're hoping to track performance. What tells us about performance? Oops. All right, I see lots of B's. Absolutely, B is the answer. And why does it work? So as you can see, it uses the employee ID as the unique identifier to prevent confusion. So it starts there. It includes date. So you can track performance over time. You can see that standardized column names, and then you also see that it's a structured for sorting and filtering. So when you'll see how we can add sorting and filtering, we can sort by date, we can sort by shift, we can sort by how many people are doing over 50% performance rating. So those would be ways that this table would work best for what we need. Poor table structure, so that we know what to do right, but what was wrong with the other two? One was data duplication. Two different employees named John without a way to distinguish him. So John and Knight, we only had first names. So if you had a unique identifier, which would have been the employee ID, even if you had multiple names. Also, notes column contains free text. So it makes it difficult to analyze performance trends. So when you're wanting to create criteria, so very similar to when we were creating criteria in one of our decision matrices, you would pick those 4 specific things, and those would be kind of how you would evaluate. And then in the other table, multiple data points in one column. So 50 tasks, 85%. The date and the name were still in the same column. So really hard to decipher and really hard to navigate. So that would be examples of a poor, what do you call it? Poor data structure. So I've mentioned this a couple of times, and kind of the goals when we talk about data is a data validation. So I'm going to give you an overview, and then we're going to see how we put that in action. It controls what data can be entered into cells. So as you're creating a spreadsheet and you're wanting to create ways to be able to input information and then also even sort in the end and analyze, it prevents errors and inconsistencies in data entry, and it standardized input across all the worksheets. And it also provides users with clear guidance on what the acceptable values are. So if you had a team inputting into something for you and you're all collaborating, and that we're not all putting different things inside. And it simplifies data entries with predefined options. So how do we validate? So there's some different validation types. One is the list. It's a drop down with predefined options. Whole number, decimal, restricting the number of ranges, data or date and time. You can restrict it to say we only want dates in here, character length, and then also using formulas for complex validation rules. And so a lot of different ways that you can make sure that you can format everything. Copy conditional formatting with format painter or paste special for formats to maintain consistency. And this is just as you're working in Excel using this conditional formatting with the painter, which is one of the tools I'll show you, to do a paste special across multiple cells that it can be consistent. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Oh, I need to go back. We're going to go ahead and go into Excel, which I think you all can see. And a way to do list. So here we have, you can see in the cell, or in this cell, I have night, day. So I'm going to be putting in information according to, here's the employee ID, here's John, here's date. And so clearly for this cell, I want to either be pick night or day. But as you can see here, it's just freeform. If I'm working on some people might just put NG if they wanted to do their own kind of acronym, but it wouldn't be consistent. So how can we make this a little bit more consistent? So there is, within data, I go to my data tab, it kind of really helps. And I have a quick thing that says data validation. If you want to get it easy, you can also go in the search bar and just type in validation for what you're looking for. To get to data validation, but I will go into data validation in my settings, and you can allow any value, but I don't want to do that. I want to allow a list, and the list that I want to allow is just night and day, and then I hit OK. Now that copy paste, when I was telling you about that roller, I could copy, this format painter is what it's called. I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to well, I should show you first what I did. So I created the data validation, and you saw this, there's this little thing on the side, and now I can only put in either night or day. That is the only information I can put in this cell. And I want to do that for everything else. So I will just do that. And so for every entry, I believe I should do first copy, and then I'll just do copy paste. No, that's not what I want. I would like to copy segment. So copy, because already the information in there, and paste. Clipboard error. All right, let me remember what this is. It worked when I was practicing on my own. This just happens. All right, let's remember which one this is. This one's here. We're going to put that there. It was day. And then we're going to do that one. Copy, paste, and paste for night. And then as you can see, it'll be the drop down for it. But ideally, there wouldn't already be information there. Yeah, that's the one I did. It just didn't work. You never know. But what would happen is that if you just copy and then paste special, which I did. That's better. And then you take the data out, it's there. And then you have your drop down for the next entry, whatever that's going to look like. All right. And apply data. All right. So are we good with data validation? And Excel does work in mysterious ways, but we just keep trying. And it ends up working out. Okay. So what's next on our list? I'm going to go back here. We did data validation. So now we're going to go to number formatting. Some things you can do with really quick access ones on the top that I like to use, and some things you can use by formatting custom cells, and I'll show you that as well. But it's really displaying numbers in a meaningful way. And so Excel when you put in numbers, I'm just going to put in something random. is that it'll just put a number like this. And that's honestly how it reads dates, for example, if you don't format it. So you can use formatting. So that's a general number. I can go ahead and then turn it to a date. It'll turn it to a date. I can also turn it into currency, and then you can always change it to different currency. You can say, I really don't want to see the cents. I'm going to do that, and different formatting when it comes to numbers. So some of the ways you can do it is there's different quick ways to do it. One exercise that you have here is you want the percentages, and we want to see 2 decimal points for it. So I could do it with these quick ones right here, or you can go into the percentage. Oh, right here, percentage, and then it'll change it as well. So just really getting familiar with how to format the data, how you'd really like to do it and see it. Let's see where we're gonna go next. All right, let's see if we did that. So those are symbols. So changing the home tab, symbols, and also numbers. And I showed you the increase and the decrease on that. Very, very good. Okay. So scenario 2 is you'll be using this data for your future exercises, but you're a warehouse manager and we're overseeing a team's performance to improve efficiency. And we need to track and analyze performance just like we did before. And so we did it. We built performance. We had the night and day. We have their start time and their task completed, as you can see, and we have their percentages there. So we're walking through, these are the different columns of the information that we're looking at. Trying to see where else. Did I cover everything here? Yes, I did. Formatting. Wonderful. All right, so that's the beginning part. Well, we didn't do the conditional formatting, which is what I think I will go back and show you. Conditional formatting helps to highlight information. If you have rows and rows of data and you're wanting something to come out, it'll help you see information a little bit more clearly. So for example, we're going to look at this data. We have our 5 employees and we have different performance ratings. And so some of the questions we might ask is, I want to see everyone who's performing at higher than or lower than 70%, and using a color coded there. I'm trying to see, am I skipping around? We'll see. It's all right. So there's a quick tab here on my screen for conditional formatting. You can also type it in the dialog box, and it gives you different opportunities to do that. So one is to highlight a cell. That's what I'd like to do. And I want to highlight cells for people who are performing more than 90%. I'm going to change it and I'm put 90% here. And I want it to be, let's do green, because, and then you can change the color. So what it's going to do, well, what it should do, I don't understand why this happens. 90% greater than 90%, it should turn red. And it didn't turn. You know, this makes me laugh. This makes me very laugh. This makes me laugh. Okay, let's go back. Here we go. This is what it's supposed to look like. Putting in the conditional formatting will then change what your colors would be. So here I had conditional formatting, highlighting cells. Let's say we had less than 70%. 70%. And the under 70%, I believe, is supposed to be with red. So we're going to say light red, and then it should do that. So let me go back and see if I could do that here. Conditional formatting, highlight specific rules. Let's do less than less than 70% light red. There we go. It turns it red. And you'll do the same if we're wanting to highlight those who are over, greater than 80%, and we'll do it with yellow, for example, and it'll highlight that data. All right, that takes care of conditional formatting. Oh my goodness. All right, let me get back into the slide. And so our key takeaways, there's quite a bit of technical things, but I trust that you'll take time, practice with the sheets. Excel and Google Sheets are essential for organizing and getting and storing your data. Data validation ensures consistency and preventing errors. So if you know that there's repetitive information that you're wanting to put in, use data validation. Use the lists that are available to you. And then number formatting and conditional formatting to be able to look for quick trends, to be able to spot things a little bit more quickly as you're using this data, this information, to then extrapolate some information. Let's see. And always remember, a well-structured spreadsheet saves time, reduces errors, and provides clear insight for better decision-making. So using it to be able to do better. Okay. 10-minute break. I think we're about due. Back. And I was playing around with a bunch of files, so let's get into the slide. So we're going to go into basic data analysis. So part of that, what that is using our formatting skills to be able to highlight trends. We're going to apply some functions in Excel, like summing, averaging, and counting, and then using some features like filter and source. Our success is to be able to correctly use these things and to differentiate the function based on whatever given scenario, whether we're calculating sales versus finding an average order. But also to apply conditional formatting. Before we ended for the break, started a little bit into that, what was conditional formatting, and using filters and sorting to get the insights that we need. So what's the purpose of conditional formatting that we're using was to be able to highlight some information, some best practices, limiting it to 3 or 4 colors of choice, being consistent with that. So if you did one report and you were using red for good and green for bad, and then you reversed it. So you want to be consistent in what you're using it. So using it purposefully. And then also making sure to create clear and meaningful rules and conditions. So if you're doing greater than or less than or in between, just really thinking about architecting something that's really consistent and meaningful and clear. Clarity is really important when using that. So we did a little bit of this before the break, but the third exercise, we're going to go in and demo some things. And we're going to start here with quantity. As you can see, an excellent spreadsheet has very clear titles, right? The columns. You have the unique identifier, which would be the item ID. Underneath, you have very similar information. So you don't see stock quantity or number. So you don't see a mix in between. And then also what kind of information under status and date. So just make sure that you just notice how clean and clear this is. But here's something, a really cute, I think this is here. Yeah. So one of the conditional formatting would be, I would like to see how these stock quantities visually. So you see all these numbers, but you're able to do something, you're using data bars. So conditional formatting, again, going to data bars, and you can pick whatever colors, but it's to kind of see, oh, this is a visual way to kind of see how quickly you can assess stock quantity. So it gives you that visual ease of doing that. And then, and you can pick different things. But here, that's going to the answer. But here, another question that we might be able to say is like, okay, I see all these numbers. Number one, they are price per unit, but they're not formatted with money. They're just numbers. So I can go here and I'll go ahead and change it to a currency. So I can see that this is a currency that I'm using. So you could format that quickly. But what I want to see is, when it comes to this, is I want to highlight all of the entries that have the price per unit above 100. So I'll go here and I'll say highlight cells greater than, and here they already have numbers, but you'd want to do it, come in and say, I want to see things that are over 100, and we can use yellow, I believe. Why are you not working again? Okay, let's see. I'm going to just a number. Format cells. Greater than. Okay. There. Sometimes you have to go back and do workarounds because sometimes things just don't work. I don't know why. And then I can go ahead and say, let's go ahead and change that into currency. And here it's highlighting all of the price per units that are over 100. So I'm able to see here are my stock quantities very quickly. And then here are my conditional formatting. Here it was supposed to be in yellow, but I did it in red, but it should be yellow. Greater than, and freaking, she didn't do it again. Well, let's skip that. So conditional formatting really does help us quickly assess what this data is. So before the break, we did the ones that included the percentages where it was green for yellow, or green for ratings above 80, yellow for ratings between 70 and 80, and then red ratings below 70. And so this is what that looks like, given where we're wanting to keep an eye out or look at, okay, what is our performance rating and what do I need to pay attention to? And I would probably think, as you're looking at this data now, you'd think, oh, 65%. That's something that's striking out to you. Why is this performance rating so low? As you can see, the formatting from the dropdown has followed over, and that's what that looks like for this. Now, when we are in an Excel spreadsheet, we can do different things like analytical data. And we can use the formula bar, which is right here. And we can search for a function. If we're looking for a search function, we can say sum, go, and it's going to bring all the different sum ones that we're looking for. If we're looking for averages, our average, we can say it can recommend. And there's a lot of different languages and conditions that you can delve into as you get more proficient within Excel, but average if there's some conditions and some scenario planning or scenario analysis that we talked about earlier. So you can change the font size, color, all the things kind of here on the top as well. But then here is your formula bar. So very similar to like in Word, when you saw, you can use all of these things, and a lot of the functions are easy access here, formulas as well, some of the things to help you out. And then as things continue to update and evolve, there's also add-ons like Formula Bot or AI add-on tools. Excel is not there yet, but there are things that are coming out. So just kind of be aware that there are things for that as well. Now, how does averages work? So let's say we want to know the average of tasks completed. So we got 5 employees. And so you kind of go in, you can either put an equal sign directly into the cell, or you can go up to the formula bar. And then here it has a little trick here because it has some of the more, what you'd call it, common. So you can also just click on average and it'll automatically kind of pull up this dialog box for you to be able to do things. So you'll see how your Excel get to know your systems and what you're using, and some of the things will do it for you. So right now I just clicked there, it automatically did it. I didn't have to select the ranges, but always making sure that you selected the right data, meaning the range. So this range is G2 to G8. So it's collecting it all and it's doing an average, and it's averaging the 5 entries, and the average task completed by the employees in this data is 51. Now, if I wanted to know a sum, how much? So this is an average. I'm going to move it over here so that I can do a sum. So this would be an average, but if I want to know the total tasks completed, again, you can do the equal, you can go into this thing right here, you can click sum, you can type in sum yourself. And here is I'll just do it through the equal. That's a little easier for me. But sum, and then you open a bracket and it'll say, okay, what do you want to continue? And then you can click the same information and then close bracket. So keep in mind, when you get a little bit more complicated or more advanced formulas in the chart or in the cell, I'm sorry, these open and close brackets are very important because they kind of order of operations, they kind of really break that out. So keep an eye on that as you kind of delve into things. But then you have the sum, and I don't really want any decimals, so you can use the decimal formatting and you can get rid of the summary. If I want average task complete in numbers, 51, and that's what that looks like there. And then if numbers change, these formulas will change. So if I go ahead and change Sarah Lee to give her to 100 tasks, you'll see how these formulas have changed because it's relying on this data. So that's 70. And then let's say someone goes down to 0 tasks. You can tell the average also then drops as well. So you can see those things are connected. Yes, awesome. I'm affirmed by your comments on glitches in this demo because this is the world of Excel. I've done financial modeling for 20 years and it's always the same, but it's always just trying again and making sure to get everything together. All right. So sometimes you can get quick stats. Also, this is a little trick of the trade here in Excel. I hope you can see the bottom of my bar here. I'm going to highlight those 5 entries. So 50, 40, 60, and 35 and 70. On the bottom, can you see on the bottom where it says average 51, count 5, sum of 25? So already you can highlight sections and then it'll tell you. I didn't even have to do the form in the form. You use this for presentation, but you can say, oh wait, I'm doing something. Can I see something quickly? 51, 5, and 255. Automatically does it for you, which I think is amazing. You can also do the same with the percentages. So average percentage performance is 82, count of 5, sums like 410%. That one doesn't make any sense, but you can see what that means. You can also do shift duration as well. Sum of 34 hours was done in their shifts. 5 people, average of 6.8 hours for work. And so awesome. You can also, and shift start, that wouldn't work. So that is really, really great to do quick analysis without having to do anything. All right. Let's see. Yes, so we did the quick stats, which I think is really cool. And then the other one is a fill function that you can use. I'm going to see how to do that. Let's say, all right, let's say I want to add up to employee ID number 20. As you can see, it's easily sequential. You can just drag it. No, we're going to do that. No, that doesn't work. Why are you not working for me? If I do 1006, let's see. It'll automatically do 7. Oftentimes, if you don't have a scale, what I do is I will take a formula and I will do an equal, add that one and add a 1 if I already kind of know how that would be. And then it'll fill it until my 20. And then you can see it'll just fill it for 20. It'll do the sequence for you. A lot of times in Excel, it can tell if you're doing dates, so January to December. So trying to see what that looks like, but filling it and wanting it to look like, so it's dragging and dropping and filling a handle for that. For different data. All right, let's see. All right, here we did some of the analysis already. What's the team average performance rates? This would be averaging the percentages, which we could do while we're holding it. As you could see, the average is 82. We did that with the formula with average. We did the sum that adds all of that. And then you can also do questions. For example, if employees are paid $20 an hour, how much did Emily's shift cost? Now, here you put in the 20 and then the F5. I would probably suggest if you were going to do scenario analysis and you wanted to see the different impact when it came to cost, I'd put the 20 in a different cell. This is a date cell, so that's why it came out as a date. I'd put it somewhere else, not in the data, but kind of on the side. And then I would reference, instead of this 20, I'd reference this cell. I'd make it, I'm pressing Control F4 to do these dollar signs, which means this is the cell it's always going to refer if I copy paste this cell. And then if I decide to say, okay, what if we gave her a raise to 25? What's the impact? So that's just kind of different things when you're thinking about adding numbers. The more automated, the better, where you have the variable information in one spot so that you don't have to follow that through into your workbook, so that you can keep your analysis really, really good, or really, really well, and just kind of consistent. As you can see, I didn't put anything in there, so it took the money away. So back to 120. All right, so then we can use different scenarios like filtering. So if you had a lot of data and you wanted to filter, there's a quick filter. It's in the editing portion of Excel, and you just click the filter, and then you'll see these drop down things, and you can see whether or not you can filter. So if I want to filter, I only want to see everyone who had an 8-hour shift. So I can see, okay, these are my 3 that worked 8 hours. I want to see those who only worked a half a shift. So I only want to see 4 hours. You can also, in this, do multiple things, number filters, greater than, less than, average. So it'll analyze the data for you if you have a lot of information that you want to get through as well. So that is the filter feature. Now, why do we use it? Focus data, simplify some of our analysis, also help with clarity. And so it really looks into that for you. The other feature is also sorting. So if you wanted to sort information, I'm trying to see what would be a better one. Let's say I take this data and I want to sort. It's already in number order, so it's already doing from smallest to biggest. But if I wanted to change it and do largest to small, you see everything got reversed. So employee ID was 1005 versus 1001. Now the trick here is you have to select all the data for these sorting functions, because if you only select, I'm going to go, if you only select this one and you do the sort and you do largest to smallest, oh, it'll tell you here. So it'll also give you a warning. This, since you've not selected this data, it won't be selected. So you want to continue with the current selection, or you want to expand the selection, which was everything. So there are some safeguards in there with the data, but just keep in mind, you want to make sure to select all the data, especially if you're sorting or filtering, that you have everything accounted for. All right. So now we're going to go back into the PowerPoint. We've got 20 minutes. We did the conditional formatting. We did some of the basic formulas that we did. We talked about the formula bar, average, sum, which is good, quick stats, also sorting. We did that as well. The fill handle.
Sheets. It is very common to create a.
So there's a 10-minute or a 1-minute video. You guys can watch that. It'll explain a little bit more in detail about the filling, the handle structure. So it'll probably explain it better than me, but that will be there for you to watch. We did the filter and we did the sort. All right. So this scenario, can we do this one? Well, we'll do it really, no, we'll skip it actually, and get into what I think would be really fun, which is a discussion question. We're going to base it on some of the information, and I'll bring the scenario back up. And we're going to see, how do we use the data in our spreadsheets? And then how do we use it to analyze team performance? And how do we come up with actions to support some of our lower performing employees? And so some of the things that we were seeing is, I think I need to bring it back up. All right, some of the things we were seeing here is that both John, so we've got John and Sarah, are high performers. So you could tell they're performing at 95%. What other variables can we see? They also have high task completions. Okay, that looks really good. And then some of the questions that we can ask is, why are they having more performance ratings, like higher? How are they completing more tasks? What is this data telling us? So we have a difference of high performers and low performers. That's one of the things. We also have a differential of whether they're working in the night or the day. Okay, so what are the questions that we look at? So one is that we highlight that, okay, those who are working at night tend to be the ones to have higher task completion. It's something that we can think about. Those who are working in the day tend to have lower task completion. Now, what would that tell us? So then we have to ask the questions. What's the difference between a night shift and a day shift? What's playing in the environment? So what this data suggests is that at night, they're more productive and during the day, they are not. Are things that we need, so asking the questions, are there more distractions during the day than there are at night? Are you able to focus more? What's affecting employee performance here? Then after that, we think of, okay, then how then, now that we've identified some of these trends, we're noticing that our day shifts definitely are performing lower than our night shifts. How can we get performance up? And then we think about focusing on some improvement things. Some of those things would be personalizing a development plan for David and Emily, finding out the whys, what is going on. Day shifts more likely have more senior management visitors. Yeah, outside influences, absolutely, that might do that as well, just to kind of see what does that look like. But we have Emily, who is one of the lowest. She's at 35.65, but she also has a low shift duration. So that also might be something that we need to look at. But we also, the things that we're looking at are task completion rates versus their performance rate. We can target support for Emily, asking the whys, what's going on, how can we help, does she need extra support, does she need more training, what's going on, how can we do that? We can encourage collaboration. So those who are high performing and high completing tasks, are they implementing some skills and some workarounds that other employees would be able to benefit from and implement for themselves? What does that look like? How do we encourage that? And then how do we set some goals and track progress to be able to bring up high performing again? Do we need to make any shift-based adjustments? If we're noticing more productivity at night versus the day, what do we need to do? What are the challenges to day shift that we need to be aware of? And then also looking at enhancing task clarity and efficiency and monitoring and evaluating progress. So providing some task breakdown, clear instructions, consistently looking back at our processes, what's going on. And then once we do that, monitor and evaluate the progress, and then recognizing achievement. So this just kind of tells you what it's an Excel spreadsheet can tell you, and then what are some of the processes of going through, utilizing the root cause analysis, right? Asking why, is going through, trying to see what's the symptom, what's going on. Is it environmental? Is it around? Is it our setup? What does that look like? And really putting in your skills into practice as we're looking at these cases. Okay. All right, 12 more minutes. All right, so in summary, the data analysis portion, real key takeaways are sum, average, count. It didn't show you that one, but it just counts the number of records. It did that automatically in the quick stats, filter, sort, making sure that you collect all your proper ranges, but practice, 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 because as you can see, it doesn't always turn out and to try to get what's going on. All right, we're going to skip this knowledge check because we've got two more parts to the data literacy. One is data interpretation. How do we interpret what do we see? How are we going to do it? So it's extracting the insights from visual representations. So drawing conclusions and making predictions based on patterns. So correctly identifying trends and avoiding misinterpretation and actionability, generating insights. So before we get into that, we want to understand, you need to understand, how are these visuals made? So basic components of charts are the title. So understanding title. And then for some of them, you have a vertical axis and a y-axis and a horizontal axis that represents dependable or dependent data. So either quantity, percentage, or value. It's labeled for you. And then also then an independent variable. So time periods, groups, and then it'll show that for you. And a legend for some that just shows you what it means and what colors mean. And using grid lines to actually help you see the information and reference points of like which of the data that you're looking for. So here's a sample chart. So here you have the y-axis. So you have the number of packages, for example, here from 0 to 40. You have your timeline, horizontal axis. So by month, you can see that clearly. Grid lines to kind of help you visually see where the data is. The title and then the legend. So you know that the blue bars mean intake, and then the red bars mean outbound. So you'll see the difference. In January, we had a difference between 21 for intake and 14. And then as you can see, you can say, oh, wow, the trend is this is going up. And you can see that there's a fluctuation with the outbound. So these are kind of the beginning things of what you do when you are trying to even interpret what we're seeing. So type of data that you can have is whether it's categorical or numerical. What's needed or what we choose for the appropriate analysis. So categorical uses qualitative variables. Numerical is quantitative. So the difference is numbers. Qualitative is more like information. Analysis methods like frequency tables, bar charts, pie charts, product category, toys, clothing. What's the average types of things that we have, or how many types? If you're talking about clothing, how many pants do we sell? Well, pants is not right. How many trousers do we sell? How many shirts? How many shoes? Right? Percentage wise of all of our totals. Numerical would be specifically how many of the trousers that we've sold, how many were blue, how many were like 10 were blue, 20 were red, 30. So it kind of goes in numbers. Probably the worst example, but it's what came to my mind. The different chart types that you can see are bar charts, very similar to the first thing I showed you. Very good for ranking, showing differences between the groups, like sales by product category. Line charts are really good to show trends and patterns over time, a series, monthly temperature changing, price stock changing, like line charts to kind of help you see. And then pie charts show parts of a whole, used sparingly. So it's like, I don't know, but it's a simple part to whole relationship. So out of all the clothing that we've had, these were shirts, these are trousers, these were shoes, you know, right? Just kind of giving you an image of a small to whole. So bar column charts, the purpose would be to show you information, bar length, height corresponding to the value. As you can see, it really works well for comparison over time with the different categories. It makes it very clear that you could see in January, they were pretty much equal, but very clearly by May, two categories did really well, but this third one definitely was having something. So what is this telling me? What questions can I ask? What information do we need to figure out? Bar charts, how to read them, understanding the title, the access to trends, which category is the highest, pretty much what I covered right before. Understanding pie charts, again, it's really looking at how does the whole thing under expenses, for example, and then breaking it up. So how are the pieces within the whole? It's very ideal for showing parts of a whole or categories. So that would be pie charts. Yeah, title segments, legends. Legends are very important and percentages to make sure that you would see there. Line charts, this is very important to also look at. It's production, sale, marketing. You're looking at three different things to be able to see over time what is the change. So it visually gives you that message and that information of what you're looking for. So you can see it could be inventory, it could be productivity, how many tasks are being done, hours worked, It could be anything, seeing the impact over time. Key points to look for would be peaks, valleys, or steady trends. So that up and down, really important to focus on. And then you have questions that would say, is it increasing, decreasing, or is it stable? What are the sharp changes or anomalies? Okay, then if you see an anomaly, then asking them, why is this happening? What's contributing to it, and going for there. And a chart is constantly telling you a story. So what is this chart telling us? That orders processed per hour over time are increasing. There's some dip. There might be a dip here, probably September, October, but overall increasing. And so the context would be here. A fulfillment center introduced a new process of automation, new training in April to improve. And then over time, as you can see in April, this would be it. They've improved, and you can see the improvement that happened. All right. Knowledge check. What? I think we'll skip that too. All right. This one's a good one. This context would be, this is a line chart. The following shows performance scores out of 100 for 4 employees. Which employee had the most dramatic dip in any quarter? So you can tell people did have a dip, but the one who had the most dramatic dip was Charlie. So then the question is, why? And some of the questions you can see or extrapolate is, by quarter 3, we've noticed it. Might have met with Charlie, found out what was going on, and helped him get into a more productive work ethic or matter, depending on what the situation was. And by quarter 4 has surpassed the other 3. So really looking at what is it, how do you compare productivity, and then what does it tell you, and then what actions can you do from there? All right, so data interpretation summary is key takeaways would be effective data interpretation, looking at what we're seeing, those visual cues of those reports, making sure that you're familiarized with the chart components. What is this chart made up of? What information is it? And then how to read it, how to analyze it, how to look at how the trends, the outliers, and patterns, paying attention to the axis, the labels, the scales, segments. Key tips is really understanding the context so that you can analyze the trends, so that you can derive actionable insights. Always checking the scales on the side for accurate interpretation, making sure that your scales are really good as well. And then making sure to cross-check data, external data with previous results, but really looking at what you're seeing in order to interpret this data correctly. Let's see. Probably go to this knowledge check just to make sure. We'll do.
Hey, Marilyn, I'm just going to jump in really quick. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I just think you might be reading the clock wrong. We still have lots of time. We have a whole other hour in the session. So as you're continuing through, no need to rush through the content. We got lots of time to finish things up. I think you might just take a look at the clock and had a bit of a mental like blooper there the last couple of minutes.
Are you serious? I have all this time left.
Yeah, so you're good. We don't have a skills lab, so no need to rush. Take your time, like all good.
Yeah, you're right. I have one. Oh my goodness, this is so fun. Okay. All right, then I will slow down. I gotta laugh at myself. Let me get back on track. Thank you so much for that. I will bring us back to our chart, and then I will go back and adjust my brain. It's so funny. And if you don't laugh at yourself when you're learning and you're doing things, and then we're just gonna be, you're just happier people. So just laugh at yourselves more. Okay. Since we do have a lot of time, does anyone have any questions about, before I go to this knowledge check, but about the different charts, analyzing them, what the use would be, and then anything in that realm? I'm going to open up Slack real quick to see if there's any questions. All right. I'm catching up on some of the observations that you all had, and I really liked it. Is Emily's performance always like this? Is she ill? Has she has time off? That part of it saying where it said pay attention to making sure you have external data or previous results. So if you find that you're using a short time frame, and in this case, we were only using 5 people over just a random amount of months, you might want to, well, she's been with us for 5 years, so maybe looking at 5 years data. So opening up that view to say, let me look at more. And if you're coming into a role, a new role, and then you're starting to analyze data, and you see things like that, I think the biggest thing really is to get that historical, anecdotal information to give you better perspective, give you better vision into what's really happening. So don't be afraid to ask for more data before making any interpretations. Is there something that you might be missing, so that you can catch things like that and say, no, she's always been a high performer. Something must be happening. What's going on? And so that would be really good. If they're in the same shift, pairing high performer with low performer to assist in training. Absolutely. That was that collaboration part that we talked about in one of the other case studies. How do you then bring them together so we can share knowledge and information to be able to do that? Okay, so we're going to go with a knowledge check. I'm going to see if there's any more questions we could ask. Shift, the pie charts. Awesome. That was the first one. Pie charts work best when, and everyone answered. Which one? 2. The number of categories is small. Absolutely. You don't want a pie chart with 100 different things. It's really high level, and and someone loved the 5 whys. Thank you. Yes, that's awesome. I love the GIFs in here. So yeah, it really works best with the number of categories is small. You don't often see pie charts as much as you do bar graphs and line charts and things like that. Now, number 2, which of the following is an example of categorical data? So remember, we talked about categorical and numerical. So qualitative versus quantitative. Which is the answer? Is it the sales revenue of $1 or stores in dollars, the number of customers visiting a website, the types of payment methods accepted, the weight of products in kilograms? What is the answer? C. Absolutely. Yes. The types of payments accepted. So is it cash? Is it credit? Is it a line of credit? So different information to be able to do that. And so if this was in your spreadsheet, I'm going to bring it back to the data validation, and you're putting it in there, having a list of the acceptable parameters that you want. So you would have, like, say, 4 or 5 types of payments, making sure that that would be the information that's feeding your data. Awesome. And number 3, a company wants to compare the monthly sales for 2 products of the past year. Which type of chart would be most effective? So listen to the keywords: monthly sales trends. D, bar chart, pie chart, scatter, or plot. And the answer is a line chart. Absolutely. Line charts are the best for tracking trends over time. And it can be, you'll see as you delve into it, it can be quarterly. Quarterly just takes the year into quarter. So quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 in a calendar year. Some of you might work on a financial year, which means quarters start at different parts. So it might be like a July start date for a lot of different companies I've worked for before. Their year starts in middle year, so it's not always January. January, monthly, weekly, depending on how granular you need to get information. But for the most part, it's really over time. And what does that look like? All right. Awesome. You guys are champs, and I can breathe because I thought for sure I was running out of time. So this is really good. All right. So now we are into technical communication. And so remember that this is also part of the data literacy part, and we are in the last piece of it, which is communication. So we did data, sorry, I can't see my chart for a second. So we had our data tools, we have our data analysis, or the analytical piece of it. And I'm not stuck with you. I enjoy this every day. This is my favorite part of the week. And so then we have our data interpretation. How do we interpret data? The big question is, what is this information telling me? That is your key question I want you to go away with. But then we talk about, how do we then communicate this? How do we share this information based on all the work we've done to put it together? How do we communicate it? So this is where a lot of your skills of using logical organization, visual, and formatting to enhance comprehension, and you're presenting information in a straightforward way that's digestible. So my biggest takeaway for you, I hope, is that when you are working with a lot of data, you know your data inside and out. And you're trying to communicate this data to people who haven't been working on it. So you have to think about who's receiving your information. So you want to make sure that readers can easily grasp and apply the information. And also your technical details are precise and error-free. Again, consistent formatting, consistent colors, everything's consistent and easy to read. You talked about different kind of communications when you're doing intro to communication, really thinking about the person who's going to be receiving this information. How can you communicate it really well? So best practices are clarity, presenting data-driven insights in a structured and concise manner, especially when working with Excel, wanting to make sure that it's consistent and clear across the board, as routine as you can do it. Context, always providing background information. Other terminologies for this are all your assumptions that you're using. I'm coming into this, presenting this based on, so that people get context when you're dealing with different cultures as well. That's really important. People don't want to see just the answers, but they want to know that you've done the research and that this is what it's based on. Data visualization using charts and graphs to kind of help with that. And then objective reporting. So presenting it without bias, focusing on key takeaways. Now, what does it look like to present data without bias? What that means is that you're using factual data and really opening up, not what you focus on, because we all have our own biases in all different walks of life. When it comes to data, sometimes we just are key to it. So if you're a positive person, you're going to be biased to all the positive numbers, for example. So you're like, I'm just going to show how great we are. But you want to show the real picture. Focus on key takeaways, but making sure your bias is not present, but that it's all facts. It's everything that needs to be there. How to communicate effectively, you're starting with the main decision or conclusion. This goes back to when you're creating your data and your analysis, you have the main question, what is it that you're trying to communicate? And knowing why are we here? Why this information is important to get to that decision and conclusion. Using simple and precise language, making sure that you highlight supporting evidence with relevant data points, that's set assumptions coming in, and then also encourage questions and discussions. Now, this part is not challenging your data, but just really engaging with your data. So how can you engage with the audience in a way to communicate what's happening? Etiquette in data communication, meaning respecting your audience's level of expertise and tailoring your explanations accordingly. Again, effective communication, knowing who your audience is. Also using a neutral and professional tone to maintain your credibility, and also providing actionable recommendations based on the data. So it's storytelling. You're telling what's happening, but you're also giving them some insight into where you think this data is taking us. So it's really telling a story. Consider what story or what message is behind the data that you want to communicate. I mentioned we can use a tool, ChatGPT, to help with us. There are also some other tools out there that are quite fabulous, Claude being one of them that I like. Perplexity is also another one. The AI-powered tools to help us in text-based responses. So what can ChatGPT help us do? We can we can clarify complex concepts and technical terms. And then they can also help us in drafting our reports, emailing, and documentation efficiently. So having all your inputs in there to get to to data? How can I streamline this to be more clear, for more concise? We can have very specific language. How can I change what you've had to explain to someone who probably have never seen this before? And so there's a dialogue happening to be able to do that. And then also data analysis, explanation, and formula usage, like in Excel. I have actually used this very in ChatGPT, where I'm like, I need a formula
चीजें
to
ना
do
सुबह के
this
टाइम
thing,
जिनमें
and I have
बहुत
this
बढ़िया
information, because it wasn't working. I knew what I needed to do, and but it wasn't coming out. So I went to ChatGPT and I went in and I said, okay, here's my formula. Help me figure out why this is not working. And then being able to assess and get my chart working, or my data working, because there's, for some reason, it just wasn't. So sample prompts are really important, but rewrite the following technical explanation in a way that non-technical audience can understand. So you come up with your assumptions, with your thinking, how can we make this more accessible? And then summarizing this detail into 3 clear, concise bullet points. Now, one of the things I would advise you is that ChatGPT is a support tool to help you with critical thinking, and you have to verify them. Some of the tools, I'll call him Claude, kind of goes over and above what's asked, and just kind of gives you all this information and just all these analyses. You're like, no, I'm sorry, I just really need this. So we're using it. ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, is a tool and an aid, but not the end all be all. You are part of that process as well. So make sure that you check it. Other ways to use it is to give them prompts for troubleshooting as well. General, explain this problem. What steps can I troubleshoot? Turn on your computer. So some of the quick things. This is what I've normally just used Google for. But if you've noticed in Google, when you're Googling something, there's that first top that says AI. So it's kind of like, without using ChatGPT, we're finding AI everywhere. So it's really making sure to look at it, and then it'll help you find some help into even troubleshooting. And also prompts for data analysis. I find that it's also really helpful in helping to summarize some data and some key points to kind of also help you in that, in kind of your thinking. So this is the part at the beginning when we talked about the data automation. How is it saving you some of the time? And it's really helping you kind of formalize it. The way I view AI is my secret assistant, to be able to help me go, just help me. Let's see, other ways to use Chat GPT. I think that would be that. Okay, I think I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back into Excel. And let's see. Can you see Excel? Okay. Let me go back and revisit some of the charts now that we have some time, which I do apologize. Excel every time is just it really is getting a lot better. I can highlight the cell, and then on the side here, it'll give me some prompts on what I'd like to do. If I want to create a pivot chart or a pivot table, or so really get to know your Excel or your Google Sheets to kind of see what you can do. But easily here, you can come into, I think it's, where's my chat? Not here. Automate, no, review. If I can right click on this, I can do a pivot table options. I had a very quick not shot, but I'm trying to find out where it went. Here it is, insert chart. So right here, recommended charts, you can see it'll recommend me using a clustered column chart. You can also just go ahead and hit the bar chart. Remember the different kinds of charts. You've got the line chart, the pie chart. And let's say I wanted a 1 or 2 column chart. So if you go 3, you can see that it's going to take your data and kind of do an initial chart for you before even building it. And so if here I wanted to do a histogram is for history, and it'll use a line in the chart. But you can definitely use these quick tools to be able to quickly do it, just highlighting it, and then it does it for you. which I think is amazing. So we can do that. So this is a different kind of chart. As you can see, it had employee name, and here you have a pivot table type. And it's just a different way of showing it, but utilizing these quick buttons to be able to see and do and then interpret what we have. So as you can see here, the way this chart is set up, they have it by task. So you can see that Sarah Lee is clearly a top performer and Emily is not. And so what does that look like? When it comes to the line charts, when we're looking at orders processed over time, again, you can highlight that. You can go to insert, and then you can go by line. And so as you can see, it creates it for you. You can also add, when it comes to multiple lines, you're just adding multiple information in different columns. So here it's just in the month and then the number, and then it creates the chart for you. And you can do different kinds of looking charts. This one has 2 charts, but I think with one, if you like the dots for visual, so that you can see the key points, you can also do that kind of charting as well. All right, let's see. Let me see if there's anything I need to go back to. I'm going to ask the group, you can put it in the chat. Is there anything you'd like me to revisit before we do wrap up with questions? Marion, I'm going to answer the question to the group. I'm really wary of ChatGPT. I've seen many horror stories. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by horror stories before I answer? Or you can unmute and say it for out loud.
I'll unmute because that's quicker. I mean, I can
Thank you.
type. I've seen a lot of, particularly journalists, seem to use Chat GPT for articles that seems to gather random stuff from I don't know where, and it comes up with a lot of spam, really, that doesn't actually make any sense, and I don't know where the sources are. I'm old school. Garbage in is garbage out. So I don't know where it's getting its information from to be able to analyze what it's saying to me. So it's something I've been very aware of and very wary of.
Thank you so much. I think my biggest advice for that, and I said before, is that we're ultimately responsible for fact checking. So we can use tools, as with anything. When Wikipedia came out and we're doing research and we're using these tools to be able to enhance our work, it's meant to be an aid and a resource and not the end all be all, because it is being fed by sometimes limited information. So for example, even in using Excel, and me using ChatGPT to kind of check on my formulas and everything. I also do a financial modeling course where I teach people to use Excel, take financial spreadsheets, teach them how to do advanced modeling. So figuring that out. But you put it in Excel and the formulas are all wrong. And so I'll go back and I said, this is wrong. Like, you're right, you caught that. And so there has to be a level of us checking the information. It's an assistant, it's someone who can help facilitate the steps, but ultimately the data, the interpretation, as you're having it help even craft your messages, which I think is great to help it craft an email for clarity, for being concise, but you also have to make sure it's saying what you wanted it to say. And that's the responsibility that we have, to be using tools to go alongside that with numbers, with data, and all of that. So I am a old school as well. And I was a very reluctant AI user, but I am finding that if we do it in tandem and as a resource and not a replacement, then we do that, because that also happened with Wikipedia, right? All the information, but anyone can edit Wikipedia. So then you're thinking, okay, where is this information coming from? And don't be afraid to use prompts like, where did you get this information from? Please source it. Oh, you're right. I'm just making a generalization from something. Please use more accurate data. And then you'll be able to go back and do that. And so many companies who are implementing their internal AI tools are actually using their information to provide, so that the information is coming as internal to them. So there are safeguards and things that are in place, but really it's just looking at it. But yeah, I do that all the time, asking it for its sources. Can you source where you got this from? And sometimes I just made it up. It's just, I'm like, no, then that's not acceptable. Let's get back to some more accurate data. All right. Any questions, any more questions, or anything you'd like for us to revisit? I see 2 people typing. I'm going to go back and share. Did someone put something in the... I see it now. Okay. Awesome. I've had some issues with Excel as well. Can you expand on what issues you've had with Excel? You can unmute, actually. We have some time to actually deal with this data, since you will be playing with this, hopefully, on your own.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do
Right.
hear you.
So yeah, right. So I just did some training with Amazon as well, like an Excel training, and I found myself, as you had some issues before with Excel, I have like similar issues, but more like with exercises, which where I had to find like characters on the cells instead of numeric characters, just like alphabetic characters. And I had a lot of errors, so that's something I want to know, like why do we have these issues? Because right now, yeah, we are practicing, but if you're in a workspace, in a work moment, that would be really an issue. You know what I mean?
It would be. And you're highlighting something that happens. I mean, technical issues happen often, but when it comes to Excel, and if you have time to prepare first, you really should debug it. Which is why, for clarity, when you're demoing something like this, for some reason, I'm like, wait, it does turn out in the end, but you want to make sure that if you're highlighting it, to be able to minimize some of those errors. But it comes down to, Excel is very straightforward once you have everything in there. And they do, I think we had a chart. Let me see. So Excel, which is really amazing, has, I'm going to see if I can find it, but they have safeguards to be able to say errors, right? Hashtag, one is reference, hashtag, another one was spill, I think I got the other day. And it's just telling me, okay, something is wrong with this formula. This is not computing. And so I have to go back to make sure that the information goes. Absolutely, it's not a last minute thing to just go and present, but it's to really look and to see what is behind it, and how everything is relating and going through it, making sure all your data is following through. And it comes with practice. So practice, really getting into it, using it really often. And I was trying to see, I think it was in my other presentation, but you can look at some of the top 10 Excel errors and what they mean. How do I use it? What should I do? I think that answers for Excel. I'm trying to think of what my last thought is. But really creating something from the beginning that you would know very clearly in the process where an error may or may not be coming from. So those are like my biggest tips on it. But learning it, there's constantly new things to do and to improve and to enhance. But it really is making sure that you have just a really good basis in the beginning as you're creating it, and then making sure that you build it out, and you built it out well. Okay. Any other questions? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I
Mhm.
remember now that it was with the commands left and right, something like that, where you find like it's like a conditional command where you specify that, for example, if the word in the cell is
Mhm.
um, Latvia or whatever, and then you can specify like left and the amount of characters. I remember the formula right now, but for
Mhm.
some reason it didn't work. It didn't work. I tried different ways and it didn't work.
All right, I'm going to show you. You guys are going to get some extra information. I'm going to show you an Excel that I was working on. Statement is basic coding. So I know GDPR. I know cut the part out or something. I didn't do too many names. Let's see. Yeah, early basic coding. When you'll see there's Visual Basic involved in it. There's Excel has the pivot tables, or they call it so yeah, VBA is part of it. But it can get very technical as you go. All right. With statements like smart small and add small bits at a time. So if it goes wrong, you see where it goes wrong. Yes, it's with if statements, testing it out before copying it through, making sure it works, making sure your premise, because you're always putting conditions into what you're doing, making sure that that's also very correct. All right. ChatGPT or Gemini, very good. And then I think I've got everything there. Okay. I have time for a couple more questions before we'll do a wrap up. I see someone typing, so I'm going to wait. My Zoom dropped. It won't let me connect. Time to troubleshoot. Okay, sorry. Someone's troubleshooting. All right, let me go back and share the presentation. And that's not the presentation. That is the internet. This is the presentation. All right, so we started the session with a bunch of ICANNs. As you, hopefully you were looking through and kind of going through on your own to see what can you do now. But what I'd like you to reflect on for a few minutes is, what one new tool or function did you learn about today? And then also identify one habit, a technical habit you want to build or improve. So we covered quite a bit, and we did a little bit of advanced financial modeling there a little bit as well. But what are some of the habits that you want? What one habit you want to build or improve upon? And then what one way will you apply that skill, whether it's file management, spreadsheet formulas, or data visualization for a real world scenario? So I'll give you a couple minutes to think about that, and I'll answer some questions in the chat. Can you suggest any other free tools like ChatGPT? So most tools are free with limits, right? So there's Claude, which I personally really have come to enjoy. ChatGPT. There's Perplexity, which is another one. Perplexity is actually very, very good for research, finding out sources, very good at saying, can you source this data? It's the one I use for sourcing. When it comes to Excel, there's Excel ChatGPT or Excel GPT to kind of help with formulas, to figure that out. And I think those are my top 4 that I use. And I used to just solely be ChatGPT. I don't have a subscription for Copilot, so I don't really know how Copilot works, or I haven't worked with Copilot. But those are some of my favorites. One thing you can do is, if you have a LinkedIn account, following those who are writing and learning about AI and its uses and its tools, are constantly coming out with just tricks and just things to look at to make our work easy. So looking into those who are doing the work of researching and making it simple for us to say, oh, this is a really good tool. There's Gamma for chart creations, which I really do enjoy if you're doing a PowerPoint chart. That one has been really helpful. And that one's also free, but free for like their first few presentations. All right. Very, very good. AI starter pack. Absolutely. But again, with everything, checking and double checking. Okay. So for those of you, give you maybe a minute or two for more reflecting on what one new tool or function did you learn about today? Which one technical habit do you want to build or improve upon? Or what one way you'll apply this skill? Very good. All right. So if anyone, I would be very curious to know if you could share it in the chat. One technical habit you'd like to build or improve. Please put it in the chat. Oh, I love that. Learn that Excel is much more versatility, user-friendly additions, and you remember. Awesome. That's so great. Spreadsheets. To use AI as an assistant, very good, like solving problems or troubleshooting and researching. Absolutely. So we have you convinced, Mary, that AI is not so bad. It's what we do with our tools. Awesome. I even fact checked. A woman wrote an article, and the way she wrote it made it sound like it was something else. It was talking about immigration laws and challenges. So I friended her on LinkedIn and I said, hey, can you help me with where you got this data from? Where did you source it? And then she went back and was like, oh, you're right. What I wrote was misleading. So we can always, as receivers of information, challenge where this information is coming from. And so to bring that back, when you're presenting information and data, make sure that you, when people ask, well, where did you get this information from? That's having your data to back up what you're presenting and really being prepared to answer everything. Or have a, all right, who's a Trekkie? Data is a hero of mine. I'm a Trekkie. Use more often ChatGPT. Very, very cool. I'd also would love to hear, as you guys are getting ready to go into more deep dive when you're doing your technical part for this, is what one way will you apply the skill? So in a real world scenario, are you more into file management? Are you really wanting to get into data visualization? What way will you apply a skill? Yes. Asking AI to prep for interviews. Absolutely. I think Claude is way better than ChatGPT in that scenario. Very, just hands down. I think there's no comparison between the two. Yep. Fix Excel errors, making more complex spreadsheets. A similar tool to Excel, but online shared. Okay. Good to know. I did analytics. I'm not used to being allowed to use ChatGPT. I think we're all learning. Like, wait, can we? Is this available? As long as you source it and you're very transparent and you don't, and you check the data, I don't think there's a problem. I'm going to train new AAs tomorrow. Maybe I will make a spreadsheet of the learners and compare their skills. Awesome. Seeing how they track with what they're doing. Didn't know about Perplexity. Yeah, I really like it. I like it. Very good. All right. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so a quick poll for those of you who said not so confident, just a little bit confident, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being super confident, how much more equipped are you to use these tools in order to increase your computer literacy and your data literacy and all the 4 different skills that we covered? 4. Awesome. Great. Need to practice more to be more confident. Yes. Different scenarios in it. Very, very good. All right. I see some chats coming in and we'll do that. Okay. All right. Very good. There's always something new to learn. Absolutely. Currently a 3, but we're regular practice aiming for a 4. Absolutely. Very exciting. Good. Okay. For this week, there's no reflect and grow assignment because you have lots of practicing to do. And so we encourage you to apply what you've learned in real tasks, exercises, actually walk through, build these spreadsheets, think of different scenarios, and then take notes of any areas that felt challenging or rewarding. What's your own progress look like? I'm going to go ahead and head over to Menti. I think I need to stop share first and then go back and share because I will get the music to go. Let me see, where are we? I'm going to go here and then go here. Can you see my screen, everybody? Actually, I need to do something else. I did it wrong. I'm going to share again and make sure that that button is clicked, and I did. Okay. All right, let's get ready. We're going to do a wrap up activity, just a few questions to see if we have done our goal, and that is to learn some things today. All right, so get your mentees ready, or get, I think, did you guys put the mentee link? Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, I've got 14 players ready to play. How many are we on the call? Do we have any more? All right, time for a quiz. All right, the faster you answer, the faster. So which of the following is recommended date convention for file naming? Awesome. Yes, number 2, it has the date very clearly and the report title. So very clear. All right, question number 2. Got more players ready. Do we got more? I got 17. Any more joining? All right, question number 2. Which of the following is not something a keyboard shortcut can do? Open a new browser, copy and paste text, restart your Wi-Fi router, or switch between open applications. Awesome. That one, every resounding restart your Wi-Fi router. Absolutely. As you can tell, you can do everything with your keyboard or your mouse once you find the proper shortcut or using your mouse. All right, question number 3. All right, true or false? In a spreadsheet, rows should show attributes like name, age, or job, and columns should show item or record. All right. Yes, it's true. It says false because as you can see, you can have it. I think I talked to you that you can actually put the information on the top or have it on the side. You can use the data how you should. You can use the data in different ways as long as it's clear and concise and consistent. All right, next one. If you have a list of employee hours per shift in a spreadsheet, which function would you use to calculate total number of labor hours a week? All right, and the answer is sum. Average averages everything out. Count counts the number of records. I mentioned that. And then sums the total. All right, question number 5. There's no music today. Why should you avoid merged cells in a spreadsheet for ongoing data collection? It causes, where is it? It disrupts sorting and filtering. So remember, if we had those columns that were going straight and we had merged files, then or merged columns or cells, then it really disrupts the sortability and the filtering of our data. All right, next question. What's the best number formatting for tracking budget figures? General, currency, percentages, or dates? Currency, absolutely. Budgets, we're wanting to see numbers, dollars, pounds. All right. Ooh, we got more players. Question 7. What element of a chart is most critical to determine the story it tells? The font style, the file name, the image background, or the axis, the Y and the X axis labels? Yes, the Y and the axis is what our data is telling us. It's telling us that story. Very good. All right, true or false? Your summary spreadsheet trends should differ depending on whether you're reporting to operations staff or executives. Or true. Your summary spreadsheet trends should differ depending on whether you're reporting to operations staffs or executives. Now you're split on that one. And the why is that you need to know who your audience is. Will you be sharing more information, detailed information on performance or financial bottom line, or for your operations staff, what's more important to them? Are they really wanting to look at the trends of productivity? Are we meeting our goals and deadlines? So the granularity or the overall perspective of what information you're sharing is really important. So it's knowing your audience. It's not changing the data. Data should always stay the same, but it's knowing your audience. All right, next one. What's the best opening line for a technical report shared with a non-technical stakeholder? The VLOOKUP formula was applied to column C. See attached CSVs for granular data. This month, total output increased by 12% across all teams, or the macro recorded runtime variance. Right, yes, clear. Number 12. So another thing, Excel can be in CSV format or .xls format. This has to do with reporting. It's just a different format, what you would use that for. And macros and VLOOKUPs are also just part of the advanced Excel functionalities. All right, next question. Why might you choose to use conditional formatting to highlight only the bottom 10% of values? To identify underperformance, to protect the lowest data, to create graphs, or to replace filters? Absolutely, yes. To identify underperformance quickly. How can we see this data quickly visually? All right. Question 11. Here is a chart. Website visitors. In which month did the website have the most visits? Yes. As we're coming in. Yep, all in May. All of you got it. Awesome. I think this might be your favorite chart. All right, next question is, a line chart shows a spike in order in December. What's the most context-aware response? Remember, what's the data telling us? Ignore it. It's just 1 month. Assume it's incorrect data. Investigate seasonal factors that cause a spike, or remove data as an outlier. Yes, absolutely. Investigate seasonal factors that cause a spike. Yes, you guys are getting it. I'm so proud. Just looking at the information and seeing what it's telling you. Absolutely. All right, next one. Based on a chart, based on the capacity utilization of the data above, which department should be the primary focus for operational improvement initiatives? All right, let's see. Shipping, absolutely, because it has the lowest utilization rate. Awesome. And as you can see visually, it was really helpful to see it color-coded. We clearly went to see shipping. Wonderful. All right, we've got last question of the night. You want to launch a new strategy when efficiency isn't already improving. Based on the graph, which month had the least change in efficiency? All right, the answer was April. Which one had the least change in efficiency? Yeah. And what that means is the least change is from data to data. So this was a relativity question. So the change from February to March, you could see it went at least a scale. And so did January. So here's the least amount, meaning that the data points between April and May is it's the minimal thing. All right, that's wonderful. I hope that last chart made sense. If it didn't, let me know. And let's see who our winner is. Our leaderboard. And it's Tiger Baby. So whoever you are, Tiger Baby, congratulations. Awesome. Okay. Let's see if I need to. Let's see. Where's my chart? Yep, I think that about covers it. All right. Any final questions? Congratulations, Tiger Baby. And thank you all for participating today in technical proficiency.